Good evening. We are indeed very happy to be back in Philadelphia. We have done lots of exciting things, exciting for us. It wasn't mentioned, but there were 7 young ladies who were rapped by Christo, not Christo and Jeanne-Claude. I was there, of course. And that was in 1968, and they remained as sculptures throughout the dinner. That was at the Institute of Contemporary Art, Philadelphia. Anyway, we are back. We're going to show you first color slides, and afterwards we hope that you are going to ask us a lot of questions. We are here for that, to answer your questions, any kind of questions. Of course, about our art. We are not going to talk to you about the possibility of World War III. That is not what we came here for. Only our art, and also personal, no problem. Just to give you a little hint, your association is indeed a very old one, but Christo and I, next month, on June 13, will be about the same age. We'll become 122 years old, because we are both born on June 13, 1935. And now, if you want to turn off the lights. How do I turn off this little light?
This light. Okay. No, this is on. Okay. This is okay. In 1961, we're still living in Paris, Jean-Claude and myself, and I did this small study collage for RAP public building. It's a very small size collage, 11 inch by 8.5 inches, and is the photo montage of scale model with the little cars, and then it is written in French, badly French text about wrapping a public building, explaining how that wrapping should be done, and of course the building to be really truly public should be a parliament or prison. This is the only 2 buildings belong to an entire nation. They often focuses in the middle. In 1971, between 70 and 72, we were finishing the project in the western slope of the Rocky Mountains. I would appreciate if, thank you. The western slope of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, project called Valley Curtain is a large curtain, 1,500 feet across and 180 feet tall curtain. And during the making of that project, it would take us 2.5 years, we received, you're looking for something? Okay, thank you. We received, the curtain was 220,000 square feet of that orange fabric and passing in the state highway. And during the making of that project, we received postcard from American friend Michael Kellenwegen of Berlin of the Reichstag. It's very strange. It takes a long time to become unfocused. I think probably this is the distance of the light, or what, because that should be unfocused. I hope somebody, it's taking a long time. I don't know.
I think that the gentleman knows.
He's not in focus. Yeah, okay. Because it's long projection. Yeah. Now, that is how the Berlin and the Reichstag area looked in 1971, and upper part of the picture is in the Soviet military sector. The bottom part of the picture is the British military sector. You can see the Brandenburg Gate on the right side. You have the wall, and of course, and you have some of the tower of the police looking near the Spree River. The Berlin until 1989 was divided in a very meticulous way by the Allied forces, the British, Americans, French, and the Soviets. Always will be a focus in the center. Outside is fading. This has always happened with a big long-distance projection. You cannot change it. I'm sorry, explain technically. We cannot make it focus on the edge of the... you see, this is color slides of area of Berlin with the Reichstag in the middle. The orange line in the middle of the picture is demarcation between the West Berlin and East Berlin. The West Berlin is the left side, the East Berlin, the Soviet military sector, is the right side. And you can see that 100 feet of the east facade of the Reichstag is in the Soviet military sector. Now, In 1948, when Berlin was divided into 4 allied sectors, the Soviets make a point to have jurisdiction on the Reichstag to control any possible use of the Reichstag for political means. Basically, the Reichstag to be not used for the political gatherings or for reunification of Germany. That is early study collage of mid-1970s, 77, of the Reichstag, very much like architect or sculptor. I do many sketches and preparatory drawings and collages, meaning original work is 28 by 22 inches, and is real photography in the background. They cut out cardboard, real cloth and real twine, and I draw over the fabric with pencil, and that collage is now in a private collection in London. The Reichstag was designed by architect Wallot to become the first democratic parliament in Germany, founded by Bismarck and the Kaiser. That is photograph from 1894, and it's typical photograph, a typical building with the Victorian ornaments and decoration with a lot of statue. And of course you see it very pompous with many, it cannot be...
He's not at the machine.
He's only focusing...
Focus, please, sir.
She cannot be in focus with that period. Again, so to repeat, it's only in the center. The Kaiser and the Bismarck never really liked the Reichstag, to become... This is a photograph of 1894. But the Berliners and the Germans were very fond of the building. For example, that is the pictures from 1914 in the front of the west facade of the Reichstag. And it can give you how the Reichstag was looking that time. You have the dome, the cupola, who is not anymore, is gone, and of course the tower, they're high. And you have the monument of Bismarck now is a different location in the Tiergarten, the park surrounding the Reichstag. Now, after the First World War, the Germany and the Reichstag got a lot of turbulence. There was the attempt to have democratic government in Germany during the Weimar Republic, and that is the picture inside in the Reichstag during the Weimar Republic, actually the Paul Lobe administration, a few weeks before Hitler came in power. In January 1933, Hitler came in power, and a few weeks later, in February, was the famous fire in the Reichstag, who was really the signal. Hitler used that fire of the Reichstag to start to prosecute progressive element in Germany. And curiously enough, the Nazi parliament, the Hitler parliament, never met in the Reichstag. Hitler was the big opera lover, and the Nazi parliament was meeting across the Reichstag in the opera house. And the Reichstag never beset by the Hitler parliament, but of course the Reichstag was big symbol for the world, and especially at the end of the Second World War, in the Battle of Berlin, the Reichstag was big target to be taken. The Soviet army and the commander, Marshal Zhukov, lost near 2,000 soldiers in the Battle of the Reichstag. The Reichstag even was not military target, was defended by Nazi commando, and the Soviet fought floor by floor, step by step, to position on the top of the Reichstag the Soviet flag in 1945. And the Reichstag was looking like that just a few days later, in ruin, and with enormous war material on the front, but really still incredible focal point to the Germans and to Berliners. 1948, the Berliners are protesting in front of the Reichstag in avoidable division of Berlin by Allied forces. The Berlin was divided, and the division of Berlin is the size of New York telephone book until 1989. Every square meter was controlled by the Allied forces, how that regulation was implemented. And of course the Reichstag was in the jurisdiction of the Soviet, the British, Americans, and the French. And in 1961, even the wall was built. This is the first picture of our friend, photographer Wolfgang Wolf, and later became the director of the Reichstag project. Wolf took that picture from the famous Vaterlands Café, who was in ruin in 1977. The Vaterlands Café is the entertainment place when Marlene Dietrich was singing in the 20s. And you see that Reichstag from East Berlin, the Brandenburg Gate, the Tiergarten, and the wall, and all the right side of the picture is East Berlin, and that area nobody was permitted to walk. That is controlled by the Volkspolizei, and the three black spots in the middle of the picture is the entrance to the Hitler bunker. The Reichstag was restored in the late 50s, early 60s with the drawings of architect Baumgarten. Very much no original sites except the cupola, the dome, and the little less height of the tower. Now, it's a massive building. It's 450 feet. This is the west facade and east facade. And you have the 150 feet height towers and 350 feet the north and south facade. And you see very much how many sculptures and ornaments there and this building, the tower. And of course, if we see later when we wrap the building, actually we do not wrap the Reichstag like looking like that. We transform the Reichstag in an aesthetical way we like to do it, actually by adding 200 tons of steel forms to shape the building in our way. In 1974, we did the project in Rome called the Wall, the Rap Roman Wall, the 2,000 years old Mark Aurelius Wall, an end of Via Veneto in Villa Borghese, between the old city of Rome and the new city of Rome. In 1976, we finished the project in Northern California. It took us 4.5 years to finish that project. Is the running fence. Now, the running fence is a project of 18 feet tall fence and 24.5 miles, built in Sonoma County and Marin County, just about 60 miles north of San Francisco, and the western extremity of the fence was disappearing in Bodega Bay and Marin County, and about a quarter of a mile disappearing in Pacific Ocean. Now, during that making of that project, and the 75 to 76, we started to intensively negotiate permission for the Reichstag project. Here you can see myself, quite young, talking to the Speaker of the House of the German Parliament, the President of the Parliament of Germany, Annemarie Renge, member of the Social Democratic Party. And of course, Mrs. Renge reviewed the model. We did it. This is the first scale model for the Reichstag, and she, member of the Social Democratic Party, was a big supporter of the project, and our hope to wrap the Reichstag was very great because we were hoping in a matter of a year and a half, we can get all the permission and do the project. Unfortunately, we missed a little point. There was the parliamentary election a few months later, and this parliamentary election, the Social Democratic Party lost parliamentary majority, and there was the conservative majority in the parliament, member of the Christian Democratic Union. This is the Conservative Party in Germany, and there was the new president of the parliament, new speaker of the House of the Conservative Party, and here in his office in Bonn, Dr. Carstens, listening my explanation. In January 1977, Dr. Carstens listening my presentation of the Reichstag. Here Dr. Carstens contemplating the model and the drawings about the Reichstag. And after 5 months of contemplation, Dr. Carstens say no. If I should be fair, when Dr. Carstens became the president of Germany, a few years later, he changed his mind, but of course he was not anymore responsible for the building. You know, the building is in jurisdiction of the parliament, and of course the jurisdiction of the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker of the House is in some way like a landlord of the building. We're spending many days in Bonn, the capital of Germany, in 1977, and probably one person who kept the project alive through all these 24 years, and he really, on many occasions, gave us tremendous boost and support, was the former Chancellor of Germany, Dr. Willy Brandt. Here, Willy Brandt advises that we should work very hard to have the support of the project by two major fractions in the Parliament of Germany, not only one party, because if only one party support the project, we will never get enough support through the whole of Germany. It's very important to have the member of the Social Democratic Party, a member of Conservative Party, Christian Democratic Union supporting the project. For example, here I am talking to Mr. Kurt Biedenkopf, member of Conservative Party, a very leading member of Conservative Party in 1977. Mr. Biedenkopf listening my explanation, and he became a big supporter of the project. After 1989, after unification of Germany, Mr. Biedenkopf became the Prime Minister of Saxony, and Mr. Biedenkopf helped us tremendously to arrange a final decision of the wrapping of the Reichstag, when he was Prime Minister of Saxony. The Western Allied forces were sitting in Berlin, and it was important to make presentation to the French, to the British and Americans, and hoping that their opinion will help us in this complicated way to get the permission in Bonn. In Dahlem, and the headquarters of Americans, we are presenting the project to the British Minister Lambert, the French Minister Landy, American Minister George. Now, they are ministers, they are not ambassadors. That is their directly representative from the Prime Minister of England, the President of France, and President of the United States. That is the special status of Allied forces have in Berlin. They are completely different from the status of Germany. Americans, to the most powerful presence in Berlin, they also have an outpost of the Aspen Institute of Humanistic Study from Colorado. An Aspen Institute of Humanistic Study in Berlin did several roundtable discussions about the Reichstag project. Unfortunately, here I felt the convinced Shepard Stone, the director of Aspen Institute, supporting the project. Mr. Stone argued against the wrapping of the Reichstag and roundtable discussion in Aspen Institute. In 1978, we did a project in Kansas City, Missouri, and Loose Park, when we cover 2.5 miles of walkways with this saffron color fabric in September of 1978, and the people was walking over this gorgeous fabric, and the foliage of the tree changed and became like the color of the fabric. But we're still working in the Berlin project. We try to move now our efforts from the capital of Bonn through all out Germany, because we like to sensitize entire German nations. Fortunately, we have a friend, art collector and supporter of our project, was the publisher and owner of the weekly newspaper Die Zeit, Mr. Gerd Bucerius, and his home in Hamburg. With us, we are putting the curatorium for the Reichstag project, basically putting together leading German citizens, art historian, businessmen, lawyers, scientists, doctors, medical doctors, to become supporters of the project and to spread the words about the wrapping of Reichstag through all out Germany. And we worked very hard between 78 and 80, 81, and through all many places, lecture, answer questions, but again, we were not very successful. In 1981, we have the second refusal for the wrapping of the Reichstag by the Speaker of the House, the President of the German Parliament, Mr. Richard Stucklen. This is why we put all our efforts to finish the project. We will already start in southern Florida and Biscayne Bay, surrounded island. And that is the project. I've been put it in focus. This is really Jeanne-Claude's idea project. We will start in 1980 and we finish in 1983.
Yeah, the focus will come, we hope. It is true, it was my idea. At the time, we had not yet changed officially our name from Christo to what is today our name, Christo and Jeanne-Claude. I was still shy then. And also, we knew that if the art world would hear that this is not an idea by Christo, but an idea by Jeanne-Claude, the art world will probably say, well, then it's going to be poo-poo. So we continue to say it's a Christo idea. However, you have to know that, number one, any idiot can have a good idea. That's not very important. What is important is to do it, to realize it. And this Christo and I have done for the past 37 years. Whoever's idea it is not very important. But my original idea, as we were both standing on the causeway in Florida, looking at those little verdant islands, I remember I said, Christo, I think it would really very beautiful if we would put pink floating fabric around those islands. And in my head I was calculating maybe 6 boats, 50 workers, shouldn't cost more than $1 million. Well, of course, my Christo improved my idea. We surrounded 11 islands and it cost us $4 million.
We surrounded these islands on Biscayne Bay with 6.5 million square feet of floating this pink fabric, actually extending 220 feet from the beach area to the bay, and the fabric was attached with a special anchor system and buoy and boom all around the islands. And the project can be seen from air, from the causeway, from the apartment buildings, and of course from the boat, because the Biscayne Bay is like a giant water park in the middle of Dade County. But we're still working on the Reichstag project. In the home of our project historian Michael Killen in Berlin, you can see here the American engineer Dorothy Bach-Abrahamian and a German architect Jürgen Zavadi, an art collector, Jean-Claude and myself. We're contemplating how to wrap the Reichstag. You know, the Reichstag is a huge building. We need to do that realization very fast. And in 1983, we were thinking to use the roof of the building to become like working platform, bring that all materials, and we're talking about 1 million square feet of fabric, on the top of the roof, and from the top of the building went and fell down the fabric. This is how we was planning and thinking in 1983, and 12 years later, in 1995, exactly that way, the wrapping of the Reichstag was done. During that time, actually several years already before, we were also working on the major project for Paris, the wrapping of the oldest bridge in Paris, the Pont Neuf. The vicinity of Paris is very important for the Berlin project. You know, it's so close that the Germans consider one project realized in the major city. And here we're talking to the Senator Volker Hassemer on the left side here, myself, Jean-Claude, and Mr. Schneider, Hassemer assistant, Michael Cullen, consulting and talking with Volker Hassemer to help us to bring a number of German politicians and members of the parliament to Paris and see the Pont Neuf wrap. In September of 1985, the Pont Neuf was wrapped with 450,000 square feet of this champagne color fabric. I don't know why the slides they are not focused. I'm puzzled, but this is the problem. That fabric was disappearing in the River Seine, and 3 million tourists and Parisians was walking off the bridge, and many friends from Germany and politicians came to see the Pont Neuf wrap, and of course that gave us the great effort to move the permit process for the Reichstag project. And we spent next almost 2 years after the Pont Neuf working intensively on the Reichstag project. For example, here, the former president of Germany, Walter Schell, is holding a roundtable discussion in Berlin. Myself, the industrialist and art collector, Aaron Oetkin, Jean-Claude, we are drumming support for the Reichstag project. And even the mayor of Berlin, Mr. Dipken, visiting us in Manhattan, in our home in New York City, and I say to Mr. Dipken, we cannot wait anymore. This is 1987, and unfortunately, a few weeks later, in late May 1987, we have the third refusal for the wrapping of the Reichstag from the Philipp Jenninger, the president of the Parliament of Germany at that time. This is why we put all our efforts and energy for the umbrellas joint project for Japan and the United States. Its proposition to install 1,000 of blue umbrellas in Japan, 1,000 of yellow umbrellas in Southern California simultaneously is the project in 2 parts, like a diptych. And something happened that nobody believed in their lifetime we experienced. That matter of a few months, a few weeks, and after a few hours, in November of 1989, the wall of Berlin collapsed. And of course, a few months later, Germany was unified in front of the Reichstag. And finally, Jean-Claude, myself, and Wolfgang Walz, and other collaborators of our projects, we can visit East Berlin, where we were never permitted to go. Actually, Wolfie, our photographer, was arrested trying to take pictures from the East Berlin, looking to the east facade and the north facade of the Reichstag. You have the River Spree, you have the remainings of the wall and the foreground. And of course, even we climbed on the top of the Brandenburg Gate to see the Reichstag from there. And of course, finally, this is the classical view of the west facade of the Reichstag with a very large meadow in front of the Reichstag. Now, this Reichstag we like to wrap. And of course, after unification of Germany, the German nation also a few months later voted to move the capital from Bonn to Berlin. The move of the capital from Bonn to Berlin is also the huge construction job will be happen, meaning that the German government will build 30 city blocks around the Reichstag. They will transform the Reichstag to become the Parliament of Germany. They will do a lot of work inside and little bit alteration outside. Basically, the German government will spend $14 billion to that move. And of course, all that site will be working site or construction site. And by year 2001, the Reichstag will be buried with other buildings, actually 30 city blocks around the Reichstag here. And that monolith, solitary quality of the Reichstag will disappear. This is why, if we was doing that project, should be done before all that major transformation start by the end of this century. This is how we were running very short in time. Now, we try to, later, when we answer Jean-Claude's question, we explain you many things, that everything we do is about aesthetics. Even the financing or paying of our project is about aesthetics. And we're always repeating how our project is financed, how we pay our project. We never enough articulate it for the prices, for the journalists. But all our projects, they pay with our own money. We do not accept any donation, any sponsorship, any help from anybody. No commissions. This is our money. Now, how we work, and I try to explain now, we're living for 32 years in Manhattan in the same buildings. Actually, we're living in a building built late 18th century, and we're using all the building, several floors, and the 5th floor, no elevator, is my studio where I'm drawing our vision, how this project look. This is the not very glamorous area of my studio. No. In 30 years, I have no time to repaint or to clean my studio. In the table, usually I work the small works, small size work. I actually drawing there, working in a collage, meaning it's a French word, meaning collage. You glue things, glue many things. And when the collage is finishing, the collages look like that. This is the collage of the Reichstag. When you give us focus, it will be nice. The upper part is 12 inches by 13.5 inches. It's two parts. The bottom part is the 26 inches by 13.5 inches. And of course, it's done with pencil, with charcoal, with pastel. The area of the building is real cloth. They are twined, and I draw with pencil. And that collage is now in private collection in Tokyo. This is another collage and private collection in Hamburg. This is another collage and private collection in Stockholm, Sweden. And I do sometimes very small pieces of small works. Like, for example, this work is 11 inches by 8.5 inches, using photography by walls. I draw with enamel pen, with wax and crayon. Often these small sketches, they study for the larger works. The larger drawings was about 65 inches or 96 inches, 8-foot drawings. I am doing directly in the wall. This is another not very glamorous place in my studio. You see the small sketch there, and I put the wooden board, the paper, I draw, and when the drawing is finished, looking like that. This is the drawings, 65-inch drawings, the 15-inch by 65, the upper part, and the bottom part is 42 by 65 inches. It's again out of focus, but this we can do. We cannot do more. And of course, you see they incorporated the upper part diagram, technical diagram, and the photograph, that drawings and private collection in Berlin. That 65 inches drawings in private collection in Tokyo, another 65 inches drawings private collection in New York, and the very large drawings, this 96 inches drawings, that drawings in private collection in Hong Kong. Now, from my studio, 5th floor, no elevator, I bring the original works down to our reception floor, which is the 2nd floor, when Jean-Claude and myself will receive potential collectors, meaning the collectors can be private collectors, museum, they can be private dealer or public dealers of art, and they buy the works of art. I hope some of you have friends artists or they're artists themselves. If they know how that transaction is happened, they know any mystification, the collector or the buyer come to your atelier or studio or home, he like the work, he take the work and give you money. That's all. They know any mystification, and the money is yours, and that money is ours, Jean-Claude and myself. And with that money, we can do everything we like to do in life. We can buy a house in southern France, castle in Spain. We can have a big apartment on Park Avenue. We can have a Rolls Royce, and I can buy diamonds for Jeanne-Claude. Instead of that, in 1991, we spent $26 million to realize the umbrellas joint project for Japan and United States. We installed 1,340 blue umbrellas in Japan and 1,760 yellow umbrellas in Southern California. Each umbrella is 20 feet tall and 29 feet diameter, 640 square feet, and the length of the project in California was 19 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. And the length of the project in Japan was 12 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. Now, during that project in October of 1991, there was a lot of journalists from all over the world. Of course, there was a journalist from Germany also asked us, what about the Reichstag? Jeanne-Claude and myself, we were so busy with the umbrellas, and we tell them, if the Germans want us to rob the Reichstag, they should write letter to us. And curiously enough, in December of 1991, only 2 months after the umbrellas project, the letter arrived. It was a letter from the President of the German Parliament, Professor Dr. Ritter Sussmuth, member of the Conservative Party, the party of Mr. Kohl, the Chancellor of Germany today, who Mrs. Sussmuth in that letter said that she is very interested in discussing the permit process of the Reichstag project, and she hoped very much that we can work something. In February of 1992, we have a 3-hour working lunch in the residence of Mrs. Sussmuth in Bonn. And Mrs. Sussmuth came, sitting here with Jeanne-Claude on the left side, and Mrs. Sussmuth came to that working lunch with a leading member of the Social Democratic Party, opposition party, to demonstrate to us that the Reichstag project have a support by the 2 major fractions in the German parliament. We have a built large-scale model already in the 1980s about the Reichstag. That model was exhibited in many, many places throughout Germany, even in the Bundestag in Bonn, in the Reichstag in Berlin. And of course, since that meeting with Mrs. Sussmuth, we start with Mrs. Sussmuth and many other advisors, we start work intensively securing the permission for the Reichstag project, basically talking to the many deputies of the German parliament. We spent 180 days in Germany and Bonn and through many places in Germany. For example, here we're talking to the member of the Conservative Party in Bonn, Herbert Scharenbroich and Klaus-Peter Kross, and they became big supporters of the Reichstag project, and they helped us to bring other members of the Conservative Party supporting the Reichstag proposal. Here we failed to convince Heinz Klein, member of the Conservative Party, to support the project. Mr. Klein is against the wrapping of the Reichstag, and we never change his mind. Here we're discussing the Reichstag project with the support with the Thorsten Wolfgram, member of the Liberal Party. Now, there's a small party in the Parliament of Germany who is like a kingmaker because they're in coalition with Mr. Kohl, and that little party give majority in the Parliament. And Thorsten Wolfgram, member of the Liberal Party, that little party helped us to bring other members of the Liberal Party supporting the project. But the process was very slow, and the times was run shortly. Even with not half a permission, we go to expanding expenses to work a variety of technical matter about the Reichstag. For example, we tried to decide what kind of fabric we use for the wrapping of the Reichstag. We did a test in the summer of 1993, and we are bringing sample of the fabric we choose the wrapping of the Reichstag and photograph of that test to Mrs. Sussmuth in Bonn, in her office in Bonn. By end of 1993, it became more and more obviously that the decision of the wrapping of the Reichstag will be happened at a much higher level than ever we expected. And on February 25, 1994, there was the debate, 70 minutes debate and a roll call vote in the German parliament. For the first time in history of parliamentarism and history of art, that the existence of the work of art was decided by the entire parliament of the nation. The debate starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the opening speech for the wrapping of the Reichstag was delivered by Mr. Kondraty, member of the Social Democratic Party. Here, our group, myself with collaborators, we are listening from the balcony. Another speech for the Reichstag project by Manfred Richter, member of the Liberal Party. Another speech for the Reichstag project by Mr. Konrad Weiss, member on Environmental Green Party of Germany. Another speech for the wrapping of the Reichstag by Mr. Dietmar Keller, member of the PDS, the former Communist Party. And here you have Mr. Kohl conferring with the majority leader, Mr. Wolfgang Schäuble. Mr. Schäuble have the same position like Mr. Dole in the United States Parliament. Here you see the Mr. Kohl and his seat of the Prime Minister, Chancellor. You know, coming from America and know that Germany is very electronic and technological state, I was thinking that the vote in the Parliament will be very fast operation, that each deputy will push some button, and they will, in a matter of few seconds, we know who vote yes, who vote no. Not at all. The vote in the German Parliament is very classical tradition. Each deputy have type of credit card chips, you know, small credit card like that. The blue color credit card is yes, the red color credit card is no, and the white color credit card is abstention. And Mr. Kohl for 70 minutes have the red color credit card in his hand. No. The principal speech against the wrapping of the Reichstag was delivered by Mr. Wolfgang Schäuble, majority leader. Actually, the speech was 18 minutes. Entire debate of the Parliament of Germany was live televised to the European community. 250 million people was watching the debate of for the wrapping of the Reichstag. Another speech against the wrapping of the Reichstag by Mr. Epken, member of the Social Democratic Party. Here, Mr. Düber gave the final speech for the wrapping of the Reichstag, and the deputy go down, put their little credit color cards in the box. In the count was the 292 for the wrapping of the Reichstag, 223 against the wrapping of the Reichstag, and 9 abstention. Now we go to the second trail. I will not, very good, put the focus. Now, we'll give a little information how we did really the wrapping of the Reichstag. Before really bring the material to the site, I was telling before, we shape the building in different way. Actually, we push the building in all direction, about 30 inches in all direction, making the building looking like that. Of course, this is a steel forms. We enlarge the building. We did that with the special steel forms we made in advance, and this steel form was shaping the building, allowing the fabric to cascading down from the top to the ground. Now, we used 1 million square feet of very thick fabric. To give you the size of this 1 million square feet, how heavy was that? That fabric was 60-ton weight. The 60-ton weight of 1 million square feet fabric was sewn on 70 large sections, and each section intricately corresponded to a particular area of the building. And of course, that fabric was rolled, specially folded and put on the roof of the building. Entire wrapping of the Reichstag was done by hand, no machinery, no cranes, no anything. When it's done by 130 construction workers and 90 professional rock climbers. No machinery. And of course, the rock climbers unfurling the fabric down, you see them coming down. And of course, the rock climbers also opening the fabric, meaning that this 1 million square feet of fabric is twice more than the surface of the building. We created folds and pleats who was 36 inches deep. And of course, they are very intricately designed to satisfy all the aesthetical decision we decided to do. And of course, the rock climbers was enrolling the fabric and opening this very thick silver color material. Now you see the steel frames here, how they was designed, and of course they come down. The fabric really cover these steel frames. The rock climbers moving down, and you have the idea how these panels was done. In the edge of the panels, you have these belts to connect to the next panel, and finally, once these belts they connected, entire fabric they literally sewn together and became 1 million square feet, one single piece. Now, because the fabric was pushed away from the building, we need to bring the fabric close to the building, and to bring the fabric close to the building, we install 10 miles of ropes, vertically, horizontally, who was crisscrossing the fabric, and these ropes was shaping the building a new way. Basically, these ropes were bringing the fabric close to the building, and that was achieved by the connection when they crossed, the ropes crossed together. At that point, it became holding lines, meaning that through the fabric, we installed 300 giant buttonholes. The holding lines go through these buttonholes inside to the building. In the rooms of the Reichstag, we installed 300 anchors when the fabric is pulled onto the holding lines. This is the view from inside, to see how much that fabric is transparent, looking that very opaque. And this is the holding lines coming down very intricately to the belt systems and shape the building close to the structure. That operation took only 4.5 days, the enrolling the fabric, connection the fabric, position the ropes, and once the Reichstag was wrapped, we hired 1,200 additional workers. And these 14 days, 1,200 additional non-skilled workers was like a monitors. Basically, they have T-shirts for the identification, and they have printed materials to give free, and we cut 1,150,000 small sample of the fabric to be given free to all the visitors. And of course, the project was available to the visitor all around the clock, day and night. And now the color of the fabric is not a silver. Actually, over 1 million square feet of that very heavy woven fabric, we pulverized 4 kilograms of real metal aluminum. And that aluminum is injected over the fabric. This is why the fabric have this enormous quality to be very painterly and change color all the time with the change of the day. And that quality give the material can become warmer or cold, like platinum, with the sunsets golden. And the building was functioned all around also, meaning that we are not only taking care about all the visitors very close to the building, but about quarter of a mile was on our own responsibility. The Reichstag was lit by the German government before we do the wrapping of the Reichstag. It was not lit by us. And of course, that light was like historical landmark in the evening, make Reichstag and gold on these 14 days. This is the classical view of the area of the Reichstag in the situation in Berlin.
Now this is just a little parenthesis to amuse you, and just in case somebody was falling asleep. At the bottom of the color slide you can see a monument. It has a green roof. It's there. It's called the Brandenburg Gate. And you see how far away it is from the wrapped Reichstag. Quite a long distance. The river, the Spree River, is here. The bridge, the Reichstag, a long alley, the Brandenburg Gate. The reason we showed you that is that please do not believe what you read in the press. Of course, you have read about the about the wrapped umbrellas. No, we never wrapped any umbrellas. You have also probably noticed that Christo was born in at least 6 different countries. Wow, what a mother. The media says just anything, and that's why we ask them to check with us, because we believe facts should be accurate. Now, the London Times published in color this beautiful photograph, obviously taken with teleobjective, and the caption underneath said, Christo and Jeanne-Claude have wrapped the entire Reichstag in Berlin with the exception of the Brandenburg Gate.
And here they have a Brandenburg Gate in the Reichstag from the top of the Brandenburg Gate, actually. And the late afternoon, of course, when the late afternoon comes, the lights start completely. And you can see that the Reichstag is moving like living object, because this additional 100% more materials give this enormous dynamic quality of the fabric. The fabric was not static, and I hope one day you can see the Reichstag film. It will be ready soon to give you an idea that the fabric was in full motion all the time. Actually, this is another picture to give you some sense of the movement of the wind. Now we go to the 2 works in progress. and give you some idea how we work in project, how something take long time to realize some of the work. For example, it's natural living for so many years in Manhattan that we like to do project in New York City, and that is the drawings from the 80s for the project who started in late 70s called the Gates Project for Central Park. It's a very simple project, it's very poetical and festive, ceremonial project involving installation of 15,000 gates over 26 miles walkway in Central Park in New York City. Now, you're familiar, this is the drawings in two parts. The left part you have a Central Park map. The all red line is all the walkway we like to use for that project. The Central Park is entire man-made park, meaning that nothing is natural there. Everything is artificial, designed by architect Olmsted and Vaux. Very Victorian park, surrounded with the stone walls, and you enter to the park by openings called gates. They're very precise opening, and of course, many of these gates in Central Park even have names like the gates of the immigrants, of the children, of the artists, of the pioneers. And our project will start literally when you enter in the park and you have that structure of 15 feet tall, and we will frame the less used space in Central Park between new feet and first branches of the tree. And basically we energize or activated that space by these two special forms. One form is the steel gate, who will be 15 feet tall, and the width of the gate would vary with the width of the walkway. Sometimes will be 8 feet, sometimes will be 10 feet, even 20 feet if the walkway there wider. And from the top part of that gate, we are having free fabric panel coming down freely. And zero wind, it almost can touch the fabric by hand, but when the wind is blowing, the panels can touch the next gate because the distance is shorter than the length of the fabric panel. And this is another collage. This is a collage from 1980, 28 by 22 inches, and this is another collage of the southern part of Central Park of that proposals. And in 1979 and early 80s, we start to work on that project very intensively. Here, you can see, again, very young, myself and Jeanne-Claude, we're talking to the Park Commissioner Gordon Davis from the Koch administration, and our lawyer, Theodore Kiel. Here, we're talking to the Cultural Commissioner, Henry Gelseler, late Henry Gelseler. Henry, good friend of us, big supporter of the Gates project. Here, we're talking to the Andrew Stein, Manhattan Borough President. This is all during the Koch administration. And of course, here, we're talking in the Museum of Modern Art, evening organized by the Museum of Modern Art for the Gates project. Here, to the Architectural League in New York City. You know, they are different civic organizations. They have no jurisdiction, but their opinion is listened in the City Hall in Manhattan. Here, Gordon Davis organizing a briefing about Gates project and Century Club in New York City. And here, another briefing organized by the Henry Gelseler, the Cultural Commissioner at that time. We have a presentation to the community board around Central Park. Here, for example, we are making presentation to Community Board 7. This is at Central Park West to the Hudson River. Here, Ted Kiel answers question, the Community Board 7. Here, Jeanne-Claude answers question, and the Community Board 7. Here, we have a roundtable discussion by Dr. Kenneth Clark, sociologist involving the variety of people and community living around Central Park. This is on Community Board 10, Harlem. This is the northern part of Central Park. And here we are discussing the project with Martin Siegel, who was the then president of Lincoln Center, Agnes Gunn, friend collector, who is now the president of Museum of Modern Art. We like to do the project in the autumn, when the tree has this rusted color foliage, and of course the fabric and the steel poles of the gates will be with that colors. And this typical idea of the walkway, you have the walkway, you have the lamp poles, who is about 11 feet high, and our gates will be about 4 feet high, that these lamp poles. In the autumn of 1980, we built prototypes in Midwest. With our engineers, we simulate walkway and different type of profile of poles, a different type of attachment of the fabric to the poles, and study how to install that project faster and And here, for example, you see again much wider walkway, Jean-Claude and my was arguing or discussing to some area of attachment of the fabric. When the fabric starts to move, create this sensual disorder. It has enormous, rich transparency. You should see that the project is really a great contrast. The corridor created by the gates is in contrast with this very transparent, very elusive quality of the material. In the Central Park, the background will be always dark. You have the trees and the high-rising building, and the contrast will be much greater between the transparency of the fabric and the layers of the fabric with the sun. After near 2 years and a half intensive work with the Koch administration, New York City wrote 225-page book to say no. That is the biggest, written refusal we have. In 1992, before we get the permission for the Reichstag project, we already start to work on a new project called Over the River. It's a project involving, we're very excited, we spent enormous time in the last few years working on that project, and it's very curious to see these early drawings. These are drawings from 1992, even the title, they're not right. It's called The River, and the project can be seen from above. It's the drawings with collage of little figure on the left side, and you can see from above, we have this suspended steel cable attaching fabric panels, and when you go down to the river, you can see the project from under. Now, these two early drawings, they are today in the collection of National Gallery in Washington. Enfin, they should be in focus, but we can do more. And of course, we try to find a river, but a river is not like a channel. A river when the river is born. And most of the river in the United States, they're born in the Rocky Mountains in the United States. And of course, some of the river go east to Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean, to the Mexican Gulf, and some of the river go west to the Pacific Ocean. For example, Missouri River is not born in Missouri, it's born in Montana. And of course, in 1992, in 1993, and 1994, we spent near 14,000 miles scouting to find river with wide water and tranquil water, looking for perfect banks and variety of other conditions. For example, here in the state of Colorado, and we did project in Colorado, remember the orange curtain? All the yellow lines is all the river we scout, and we find two very possible rivers for our project. One possible site is Arkansas River in the eastern slope on the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, 50 miles southwest from Colorado Springs. And you see, it's very moving water with a good access of road. You have a great access down to the water, and of course high banks, and is one of the most rafted river in the United States. You know, we need high banks to have position our steel cable above. In the state of Idaho, all the yellow line we scout there, we have two rivers. One is called Piet River. Again, you see this open view. Often when you have so much water, you have so much vegetation, it's like a screen of tree, and you have a lot of marvelous clean water moving. And you have the Salmon River, again with the high banks and great access down to the river. In the state of Wyoming, they're all possible sites. They're not yet decided. In the state of Wyoming, we have the Wind River. We have a railroad tracks on one side, high banks, again, and very great moving water down to the river. Very much like with the Reichstag. Up in my studio, I do the sketches and drawings. For example, this is little sketch, 14 by 11 inches. Is using photography myself for the scale is in that photography. And I try to explain, you know, we do not finance our project only with the drawings of one project. For example, to pay the Reichstag project, we sell also many over-the-river drawings, and the money go for the making of the Reichstag. For example, that collage of the over-the-river seen from above, another collage for over-the-river seen underneath is in a private collection in London. This is another little study for over-the-river, Arkansas River in Colorado, and this is the 65 inches drawings of over-the-river, seen from above, Arkansas River, and we'll go down to the water, seen from under. Thank you very much. Now we can have it.
We are ready for your questions. Questions? Yes?
Now, louder, or you can...
Oh, wait. Before everything, let me fill you in for a few things. We have forgotten to tell you a few important things. All these projects that we have done, they are works of art. They have no other purpose than being a work of art. That's what every artist does anyway. And we do them for us. We do not do it to please the 5 million visitors who came to see the wrapped Reichstag. We do it for us. Of course, if some other people like it, that's great, no problem. But it is for us. Once a project is removed, we recycle all the materials for all the projects. Everything is recycled. We do not reuse it for the next project because for each project we need a different type of material. When we say recycle the material, it's not just the fabric. We also use steel, aluminum, chains, wood, etc. And everything is reused for one purpose or another, but not for art and definitely not for souvenirs. We also forgot to tell you that the money we spend, and Christo said it is our money. That money doesn't come back. No money back. And therefore, we are very much like all the parents on this planet who spend a lot of time, love, energy, and money bringing up a child. There is no money back. There is something much more valuable than money back. And for us, each one of our projects is like a child of ours. You also don't know, we are not only artists doing these kind of things, we are also people. We have a son. Last Saturday, he became 36 years old. He's a poet, published. Teeny little books, but published. When he was 25, he produced a documentary film. He's produced many, but the very first one he produced was a documentary against war. And guess what? His very first was nominated for the Academy Award. Not so bad for a first. Now we're ready for your questions.
The lady have a question there.
Yeah, it was what happens to the material afterwards. I saw it on your finger. Yes.
I was in Berlin for the opening of the Reichstag and came back and followed it on the internet. And I wonder if you have plans to work more of your projects on the internet.
No, we did not work on the internet at all, but in our office in Berlin, we indeed had given permission to a team of young people, and so that we could check on the accuracy, and they did it, but it was their project.
And we is still on internet now.
It is still on the internet, yes. But I mean, it's not our doing.
We don't do it.
We don't truly believe in virtual reality. We love real reality.
Yes.
I met a woman that worked on the Berlin project with you, and she said it was fascinating. And I wonder if you could tell us something about the people that are non-skilled but interested people that you bring into your projects, your art projects.
I don't understand the question. Of course, I could tell you, but do you have 5 hours? No, ask a specific question, please. Did they work well? Yes, they were great. They applied, they wanted the job. Everybody is paid. We have no volunteers on the project. And yes, they do a lovely job. But other than that, nothing more to say than our monitors at the umbrellas were great, wonderful, full of enthusiasm, always at every project.
But it's not happened right away. You know, it's take little by little. When we do this project, once that we have a green light for the permission, we go through that process preparing the project off-site, in the factory, in the many places, but also our organization is involving preparing that additional non-skilled workers. And in Europe, for the Ponef project and the Berlin project, we can hire only members of the European community, you know that because this is the legal. In Japan and California, we can hire only Americans and Japanese workers to work in the project, or residents who have working permit. But all these projects, they are done very much like building a bridge or skyscraper. You know, they have professional workers who have their professional works, and we
Professional wages.
Professional wages, steel workers, carpenter, machinists, and of course we have the non-skilled workers who come for the last, who is really like the maintenance period when you involve huge amount of service to be taken around the project.
Of course, we do a little bit of cheating. As he said, we always use local people because it's the law, and I say nobody is ever a volunteer, not paid. It's not true. My mother has worked all over the world at all our projects. We never paid her.
Yes.
Why did you pick the Reichstag as opposed to some other, like the White House or the English Parliament building?
You heard the question, why the Reichstag, not other building? I'm here in the West because there was the Cold War until 1989. If they were, for the 70 years, the world was divided between East and West, so capitalists and communists, and we were in a total confrontation. And in 1987, I escaped from communist country to the West, and myself, I am product of the Cold War. If there was no Cold War, probably I was still remaining in Bulgaria, some small village. And the way was for me that there was separation of the world is very important, and the only place in the world where East and West was meeting in a most dramatic way for architects, sculpture, or artists was in the city of Berlin. In the only structure who was in jurisdiction of all these forces was the Reichstag, no any other structure. If I was born in Nebraska, probably the Reichstag have no any meanings.
Yes, yes, sir.
Since you began to realize the Reichstag project in 1970 or 71, and it was eventually completed in 1995, did the finished product, as it were, did that change over the 25 years of the project? In other words, if you had done it in 75 or 76, would it have been materially different than what we actually saw?
Yes, it would have been extremely different. We were not ready in 1971, indeed. And when the project, in the books, when you see early drawings about the wrapped Reichstag and the recent ones, the ones done just before the completion, I don't know if Christo told you, but once a project is completed, Christo does not do any more drawings. That's why we call them preparation works. Now there is an enormous difference between 1975 collage showing the wrapped bridge in Paris and the 1985 showing the wrapped bridge in Paris. Those two collages, you could almost think that it's not the same artist who created them. Same with every project. The drawings reveal the evolution, the maturity, the crystallization of the thoughts, and indeed, it is lucky for us we did not get permission in 1971, as you feel.
But no, but there are other things there. Also, there are not changes. No, the Reichstag have additional this dimension by 1989. Much of the
When the wall fell down.
when the wall fell down. If the Reichstag was done before '89, when we're still in the Cold War period, certainly the Reichstag will be exploited in this confrontational attitude between East and West. The Western power will use the Reichstag to say to the communists, you don't know what is the free art or free world and things like that. And of course, that one-sided or diminishing quality of the work will be encasted in this Cold War situation. But with the end of the Cold War, the Reichstag building was like a sleeping beauty. Nobody believed that the Cold War was over. And nobody believed that Berlin will become a capital of Germany. Nobody believed that, again, the Reichstag will be Parliament of Germany. That all give additional dimension to the work. All the remaining history was there, that there was burned in 1933, that there was the end of the war. But that vital quality of the building was very important in the physical presence of the building when it was wrapped, because when the Reichstag was wrapped, the building was like in movement, that would go somewhere, and everybody was aware that there will be happen something in that building. And what will happen, nobody knows. But until 1989, the Reichstag was like a mausoleum. Nothing should happen there. Yeah. Yes?
I was just wondering, after, I really enjoyed your discussion about how it came about. I was wondering, after it was accomplished, did the people who were against it change their minds, or they still didn't like it? And how was it received by the public?
change their mind. We, of course,
Not many probably. I don't know.
we don't know how many changed their mind. We know we have met a lot, as with every project, of people who indeed changed their minds. Those are the intelligent people, because only intelligent people can change their mind. We do know of one who has not changed his mind, but because he's Chancellor of Germany, I shouldn't say his name.
Yes.
What was his primary reason for being against it?
Okay, tell them. 94, I think, in January 94, before the vote in the parliament.
Yeah, we of course are going to give you a quote of something we have read in the newspapers. Therefore, we do not know if it is true. But we read that when the Chancellor Helmut Kohl was asked by a journalist why he was against,
Before the parliament.
a year before, the Chancellor of Germany said, the Reichstag is much too important to be the subject of art. Upon which, of course, we had to believe that quote and we had to answer through the media. And our answer was, anything can be subject of art, from the most humble flower all the way to the image of God and Jesus. Anything can be subject of art. And we do not believe that any German in his or her right mind would ever think that the Reichstag is more important than God.
Yes.
Did the building function as home government building
No.
every day?
No.
So that's why the reason
No, but it was not.
No, the building had not been functioning
Before.
as anything for a year before, and had not functioned for any governmental purpose
Since 19
since
Yeah.
and more.
determined that it would be just 2 weeks? Was that you, or was that part, was that your decision that?
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
That it would be 2 weeks?
Out.
No, that is always our decision. The temporary quality of our work is an aesthetic decision.
2 weeks.
And 2 weeks, Le Pont Neuf stayed 2 weeks, the running fan stayed 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That is a very good question. Of course, all the material has been recycled for the umbrellas, the fabric, the steel, the bases, but where they are, we don't know, because, for instance, the most expensive part of the umbrellas was the aluminum, millions and millions of dollars.
Cast
And that aluminum had been cast for us, and then it was recycled by melting the aluminum and becoming aluminum again, and we don't know. It could be an airplane, a can of Coca-Cola, we have no idea.
Yes.
Has anybody shown you the Meridian Bank building?
No, here.
Well, I don't know. If I suppose if our friend Armand was here lecturing to you, you would ask him to slice it, because that's what he does with violins.
Yes. Yeah, the gentleman.
Have you ever experienced any artistic failures that you'd be willing to admit to?
We failed many projects never.
Only when we are screaming at each other and we wonder after 37 years together if we made the right choice. No other.
Yes.
We don't understand the word.
Talk too fast, please.
Have you ever thought about vandalism with respect to
Vandalism.
We have a little bit. Thank God the Vandals didn't. They haven't thought of vandalism, the Vandals. I'll tell you a little story. In fact, if you have the time, I'll tell you 2 little stories. First, the most recent one. Berlin, just like New York City, and maybe here, I don't know, is really a graffiti city. Therefore, in our Berlin office, we had bought cans of very expensive silver paint and large brushes so that our maintenance teams could go around painting in silver the possible graffitis on the fabric. 2 weeks, 5 million visitors, we never opened a can. Now, we did have vandalism, yes, indeed, at the running fence. Christo and I, we were at the other end. You know, running fence was 24.5 miles long, and Christo doesn't drive, so I was driving the station wagon, and we hear on the radio Ted Doherty, our builder contractor, who says, "Kiddos, you got to get here right away. There's been vandalism." Oh my God, I say, well, Ted, we are prepared. We have extra steel poles, we have extra fabric panels. Replace them. He said, "Well, kiddos, I'll replace it, but you got to get here first. I want you to see it." Okay, so I'm driving, a bit nervous, and we arrive. Oh my God, you know what that vandal had done? Oh, good Lord. With a spray can on our beautiful white fabric panel, that guy had written, "Christo, we love you." Of course, we replaced the panel.
Yes, yes.
What's the objection to the New York City project?
Objection to the New York City project. You know that 225-page book was written by Gordon Davis, former park commissioner. And Gordon is the lawyer. And his writing is the very, no, but his writing was starting, first objection, very like a lawyer, that he will create a precedent. That if we give permission to the Gates project, we should give permission to other projects for Central Park. This is number one.
But I think I remember, it was many years ago, that one of the precedents he was quoting was that if he were to allow the gates, then he also would have to allow in Central Park motorcycle races.
And the second objection was that the park is overused, that the project will attract many thousands or millions of people, but unlike the visit of the Pope or rock and roll concert, that project is parade and for 26 miles through all the walkway. Very few people will walk all these 26 from 59th Street to the Harlem and East and West, these 15,000 gates. And the third objection was that he cannot conceive that temporary work of art for 14 days, and we spend, that time was expense cost estimated about $8 million, that can be spent only for the work of art. That was the official objection. Now, we know that objection is much more delicate and much complicated, and each time when we fail to get permission, I blame myself first, or Jeanne-Claude first, that we were not enough intelligent. What we did, we hired the services of Dr. Kenneth Clark. Dr. Kenneth Clark is not the art historian, he's a sociologist, African-American, who is very important, the famous case, United States Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education in the 50s. And Mr. Clark, he have an agency and preparing human impact report for the corporation and company, for IBM or General Motors, and we hired the services of Mr. Clark's office to prepare human impact report for the Gates project. Basically, he interviewed around 1,500 people around the park. He organized several seminars with the different groups of people, and some seminars we were present and some were not present. All these findings he put in the computer, and he have a booklet about 75 pages who reveal more of the problems we were facing with the Gates project, that official refusal. We discovered to that finding of human impact report of Mr. Clark two very important things, that the blacker was the people and the poorer was the people, they liked the project. The whiter was the people and the richer was the people, they start to dislike the projects. The most whiter people and the most richer people, they profoundly dislike the project. Now, what is that revealing? That we did very poorly with the New York establishment. Basically, the park in the New York City, the situation of the park is between two diametrically opposing visions. One vision is the very conservative vision, who think that Central Park is like a Mona Lisa of garden architecture, that if they allow, they will build fences, gates, and they will close the park 6 o'clock, or they will charge tickets to go inside in the park. This is the more right-wing vision of the park. Another left-wing is much more liberal. They think the park should be used for everything because it's the only place that people can play, have the greenery. Between these two diametrically opposition situations, the park department is really need money to keep the park working, to be clean, and the money comes from the wealthy people, to the rich people who give donations to clean the park and to make prune the trees. Of course, we did very poor job with the establishment.
But we are older and wiser. We learned We're going to now go see the right people. Right, I don't know, but the people we need to say yes. Yes, sir?
How in the world do you recycle a million square yards of
Passion, passion, passion.
How do we recycle? We don't recycle. Recycling plants are paid by us to take care of that.
I know. First thing, all this material is called industrial textile. I don't know how much you're familiar. Industrial textile is much bigger business than textile for clothing. And all the industrial textile is done for construction, agricultural, and environmental purposes. For example, you remember 2-3 years ago there was the big floods in Mississippi River, and hundreds of millions of sandbags was put to stop the river. These sandbags was not done on cotton, not on linen. They're done on man-made fiber, polypropylene or nylon, exactly the fabric we use fabric. Now, all the fabric we use is fabricated for that. For example, the fabric of the Reichstag project was made not for us, it was only pulverized with aluminum for us, but the fabric was made for water filters and base were used for water filters industrially. And of course all these materials we're shopping around the world, and we work with the company, with the different organizations to take back, we pay the recycling and go to all kind of these uses. Yes?
You have several books out, is that correct?
Yes.
And they're still in print, they're easily of both the drawings and anything else?
Are you asking
books?
If our books, I think there is 27 books on our work, but yes, and there are some brand new printed last year. Yes, they are in print. And you're asking if there are some drawings in there also? Yes, there are, of course. When we show a project, a temporary work of art that has been realized, we always put a few preparation drawings that were done before. So there are photos of the running fence, but there is photographs, reproduction of running fence preparation drawings.
Other question? Yes?
You had films of each one of your projects that are
Yes.
they available as well?
Yes, there are films, 16 millimeter, they exist in video also. Just like the books, we receive no royalties on those, but it's the filmmakers, and the filmmakers, for instance, who did the film 28 minutes about the Valley Curtain is Maysles, M-A-Y-S-L-E-S, in New York. That film was nominated for the Academy Award, but they have done also Running Fence, Islands, Christo in Paris, Umbrellas, and the film, oh, by the way, the film Umbrellas received the first prize at the Grand Prix, first prize at the Montreal Festival of the Film About Art, and was shown at the Louvre 2 weeks ago, which made my mother very happy.
Yes.
It seems like you started out with a set of rules or a code of the way you were going to approach a project. Has the rules stayed the same from the first project, or have they evolved with the project?
Okay, there is no set of rule set for all the projects because all the projects are so different. We have a set of rules of our own in our heart and our head, but for each project the rules are different. Christo will elaborate.
All our projects have two distinct periods, the software period and hardware period. The software period when the work exists only in the drawings and sketches like proposition, and the hardware period when physically we install the work, the materials, the wind, the forces of the nature. Now these projects have these two distinct periods. And through the software period we try to convince thousands of people who try to stop us, and thousands of people who try to help us. Now, all that is build that energy, and finally is culmination of the realization of our project. But to grasp our project, you should really understand what they have inherent. And it's very easy. Once you understand what is the project, what is inherent to the project, it's very easy to read our projects. One meaning that this project have the elements of painting, sculpture, architecture, and urbanism. For example, The surrounded island, the pink islands, was like a huge shaped canvas, flat on the surface of the water, color of pink, tropical vegetation, where the Pont Neuf, like a 1,000-foot sculpture, but the Pont Neuf was also a bridge. The people was walking over the fabric, the boat was passing underneath. The Pont Neuf wrap was also architecture. Installation of these 3,100 umbrellas is like building little cities or villages, settlement. Each umbrella was a 2-story high house, like houses without wall. To tell you how it's like building a villages, we need to have so many permission of this for the umbrellas, different governmental agency. In Japan, we need to have a permission from the state of Ibaraki, 3 counties in the central government of Tokyo, and 459 Japanese rice field farmers. We are leasing, renting the land. Now, the central government in Tokyo, Ministry of Construction, take over a year to decide how should give us permission to install 1,340 blue umbrellas in 12 miles valley in Japan. After 1 year thinking, they produced this huge volume of permits, and they was give us permission to install 1,340 houses. They get it. They exactly get it because we were doing this project exactly for that purpose. We were colonizing the space by building this little settlement. Now, what I like to say that this project have the architecture, painting, sculpture, and urbanism. This is why you should see the project in the same way like architecture and urbanism. Nobody discussed the painting of some artist before the painting is realized. But you're discussing building a new airport, building a new bridge, building a new highway, because there's some people opposed or some people support. Basically, our project, they are deeply rooted on what they are. They are really not built by assistants, even that some newspapers say that Christo and Jeanne-Claude, when their assistants robbed the Reichstag, they never say that I am paid and his assistant built the pyramid to Louvre. No, the question is that if you really don't, in that way, our project also creates this participatory public who really sensitize much before the project is realized. You don't have that public in painting and sculptures. You have that public again in architecture and urbanism. Because all these parts, this is how we're doing. We are borrowing space who basically never been used for art before. Usually the classical space, and here's the best place to explain that. You have a great exhibition of Brancusi a few months ago, and Brancusi, great master of the modern sculptures, was that the glass, a very simple object, and he turned around, and that is the space. And some sculptures like Calder even can walk inside in the sculptures, but that sculptor space was designed by the artist. Artist shape, and you move around, but that is all designed by the artist. There are another space who very rarely use for art. Like when the moment we're leaving our home and we start to walk on the street, somebody designed the sidewalk, somebody designed the street, somebody designed the highway, even the airway. 24 hours around the clock, we are funneled to highly regulated space, owned by somebody, with logistic, regulation, and jurisdictions, control, and restriction. And of course, we like to come to that space and borrow that space for a few days and create gentle disturbance. Basically, we borrow the space and we take everything what is inherent to that space to become part of the work of art. Now, I hope my English is good to understand. The drawings I show you and the cover slides, there was drawings about the Reichstag. The photographs I show you of the wrapped Reichstag, there was photographs about the Reichstag. But when we wrapped the Reichstag in June last year, it was not a project about the Reichstag, it was the Reichstag wrap, the real things. And of course, this is why the project, and all our projects, they're bigger than our imaginations. We absolutely impossible to summarize what our project there, because it would be unthinkable that and arrogant for us to pretending that we know. For example, how we know that the Japanese see the blue umbrellas? First, we're not Japanese ourselves. How we can even arguing how the Japanese receive the blue umbrellas? We have some hints. But the work is so broader and perception is so rich, is so complex that if we only touch the top, and this is why this project carries this tremendous power, and they are revealed to us, is like revelation. When we start project, we do not have all the ideas right away, The idea is developed, revealed to us through the years of preparation.
To finish answering your question, we couldn't have rules because each place, each site that we choose is different. So the rules will be different. We do have personal rules, and I say we always want to work for us. We want to see the work. We believe it will be a work of joy and beauty. We want to see it. If we're going to see it, we have to do it. We want to pay for it ourselves. We will not accept any sponsors because we want to work in total freedom. Another rule, by the way, if there are any collectors here, we are our own art dealers in New York. Next question.
Is the transitory nature of your projects an integral part of your artistic philosophy? Or are you ever going to do anything more permanent?
I will explain why our works are temporary. Throughout the civilization of man, and as long as there has been artists creating art, they have used many, many varied qualities. It can be done archaic or modern. It can be in bronze, in stone, in painting, in stucco. It can be more figurative, more abstract, bigger, smaller. However, there is one quality that is very, very dear to human beings, and that is the quality of love and tenderness that we human beings have towards what will not last, towards what is temporary. For instance, we have love and tenderness for childhood because we know it will not last. We have love and tenderness for our life because we know it will not last. This quality of love and tenderness, we wish to endow our work of art with it as an additional aesthetic quality. That's why it's temporary.
Yes.
Have you had any difficulty as far as unions are concerned?
Union.
No, we have no difficulty with union because we pay union wage. No problem.
Yes.
Does rice paddy farmers want to keep the umbrella?
No.
Oh yes, yes. And not only the Japanese and the California landowners wanted to keep the umbrellas on their land, not only that, but we, who had been fighting Bonn, capital of Germany, for 24 years, guess what? June 1995, we are in our office in Berlin. The Reichstag is shining in all its splendor under the sun. Telephone call for the Christos from Bonn, asking, would you please leave it 2 weeks longer than planned? Guess what? No way. Yes, sir.
I was wondering who the major influences on your approach to art are, because there have been a lot of parallels drawn between the works of men and say a lot of the works of the stuff that you have done in the 60s, say packaging and
The question is who has influenced our work, because the gentleman sees a lot of influence from Man Ray. We are not, Christo is going to explain to you his childhood and teenage in Bulgaria, and that definitely is his influence, and a little bit of art history. But about Man Ray, we are not aware of any project he built. Maybe you are thinking of a photograph. Oh, no, we don't take photographs. No, he took a photograph of a wrapped sewing machine. He didn't create the sculpture. He took a photograph of a wrapped sewing machine, then he unwrapped the sewing machine. We don't take photos.
But I've seen a lot of data books where your sculpture has been compared to.
That's good sculpture.
Well, you will read a lot of art books in which he was born in 6 different countries, where we are called conceptual artists. No, we are not conceptual artists. An art book that I was told is good by Mr. Hughes says that Christo was born where? Czechoslovakia, And Channel 13 said he was born in Belgium. Don't believe, it's not true.
I know that the gentleman referring to the photograph of Man Ray, who was photographed for the cover of the surrealist magazine called Minotaur of 1920. But the closest things to our project is not the photograph of Man Ray, it's the drawings of Henry Moore from 1941, when it's called Tie a Wrapped Up Object with Little People, something. Little people, crowds looking at a wrapped up object. That is the closest to the scale. That is the drawings of Henry Moore from 1942. But really, it's not that. First, we don't do only wrappings. Of course, some projects like the Pont Neuf, the Reichstag was wrapping, but the umbrella was not wrapping, Surrounded Island was not wrapping, Running Fence, the Valley Curtain was not wrapping, Over the River or the Gates is not wrapping. But of course, the wrap project is the fabric. The fabric is wrapped, cover the structure. Now, the cloth was the long tradition in history of art. For 1,000 years, the artists used the fabric. Of course, not real fabric, was in bronze and sculpture and the paintings. Actually can recognize the style, and middle age period, the folds of the fabric is much more angular when you go to Bernini, and the fabric is more of a roundish, flamboyant. But the best examples what the fabric do in classical art is the case of the French sculptor Rodin. Rodin did two versions of the figure of Balzac. The first version, Balzac was completely naked, big belly, skinny legs, and many details. Now, what Rodin did it? Rodin take the cape of Balzac and shroud the figure of Balzac, and today we have the famous figure of Balzac. Basically, he removed all the details, he hide all the details, and highlight the principal proportion of the figure. This is exactly what doing with our wrapping project. If we see the Reichstag project, the Reichstag building was Wilhelminian Victorian building, full with ornaments, sculptures, details, windows, stones, many details. Now we hide all this detail and highlight the tower of the building, the proportion of the building, by simply simplifying the building. I remember when we wrapped the Pont Neuf, and for 14 days when the Pont Neuf was wrapped, the Pont Neuf was looking like abstraction of a bridge or the essence of a bridge. And everything who was not wrapped around the Pont Neuf was so trivial and banal, because there was so much with ornament, so much little things. Now this is what we do with the wrapping project. Unlike the classical sculpture who was done in bronze and marble and wood, our cloth is the real that gives the dynamics who cannot be achieved in the classical art. But with the wrapping buildings, and the case of the Pont Neuf and the Reichstag, is also a long classical tradition. For hundreds of years, the artist was fascinated by architecture. From Piranesi to the Claude Monet, the artists painted architecture. They do it their own way. Claude Monet painted the Cathedral of Rouen in yellow, or pink, and blue. He never said that the Gothic cathedral is not good. He liked to do it in his own way. You can see that this architectural interpretation of us, the Pont Neuf and the Reichstag, is in that very classical tradition of how the artist was fascinated by architecture. You know, and of course, the reference of Dada or Surrealism, I think most of Dadaist artists was literary. They very little to do with architecture. I'm very interested in architecture. Now, that is coming from my training in Bulgaria. I started to study art very young. I have great parents. First, I owe anything to my father and mother. I was 6 years old, and my parents saw that I was very gifted to draw, and they hired a private tutor. 3 times a week after school, I was 6 years old, I have private lesson of painting, sculpture, architecture, and drawings. And since of age 6, I tried to be an artist. You know. In a way, I never other things to be an artist. I studied an art academy in Bulgaria. An art academy in Bulgaria in the 50s was, early 50s, was very classical school, very much like the 19th century art school here probably in the West. To become an artist, painter, or architect, or sculptor, because architecture was in fine arts department, was not an engineering school, you go to 8 years of trainings. The first 4 years you learn everything, from painting, sculpture, architecture, drawings, industrial design, decoration, even 4 semesters of medicine. I make dissection on human core, and human body, and when I escaped my country, I was not decided to be a painter, sculptor, or architect, or industrial designer. Yeah, I don't choose my specialty yet. This is why, for me, to be interested in many other things was very natural and is completely not linked to be a painter, sculptor. And I'm very keen of architecture and urbanism, very much. Yes? Our first project was called Dockside Packages, who the first time we tried to borrow or to ask permission from the Port Authority and Rhine River on Cologne, public space, to do temporary work of art, 1961. And that is basically there was a small size problem, but we need to get permission to install that dockside package in Rhine River. Second project was in Paris. There was also a smaller size project, but very difficult project because we need to get permission from police, from the transportation authority, a variety of services. Their public space who is used for, and we need to go and manipulate that space.
Of course, we have done many more projects than what we showed you tonight because they were not directly related to the story of the wrapped Reichstag. But I'm sure you're familiar, the young lady, you didn't finish the sentence because I cut you. In '62 in Paris, we closed the street with a wall of oil barrels, the Rue Visconti, and we called it the Iron Curtain because it was 1 year after the Berlin Wall had been built. And there are many, many projects. We couldn't show them all to you tonight or we would still be here for breakfast tomorrow.
Yes?
The Williamsburg Bridge's pillars in New York are currently wrapped, very much like one of your wrapped projects. Is that an example of life imitating art?
No, sir. You have never seen one of our projects, or you wouldn't say that that thing looks like our art. No. That thing looks more like the skin of a salami on a salami. No, that's not how we work.
Other questions? Yes?
What do you do to relax, to get away from your work?
We come to Philadelphia.
Yes. No, we don't speak many. I speak terrible language. All languages I speak very badly. I never had time to. But Jean-Claude speaks several languages, but we're not. No, we have a great interpreter.
No Japanese, no German,
but
great, fantastic interpreters. But Spanish, Italian, French, and English, yes.
That was in 1968.
Yeah.
That was the edition for the Friends of the ICA. Yeah. Yes?
I wondered, you said your projects are, they develop kind of like they're your children. And I was wondering, besides your son, obviously, does one work have, do you hold particular fondness for one project over another?
Yeah.
We are asked if we have a favorite project. I give you the classic answer, and you know it already in advance. You would never ask a mother and father who have many children which one is the favorite. No way.
But it's always the project we're doing is the most favorite.
Yeah, usually we have a favorite. It's the next one.
Other questions? That's all? Thank you. Thank you very much.